Morning po. Morning po sa ating lahat.
Morning po.
Good morning po, sir.
Morning po, Sir Joel, Sir Rafael.
Good morning po.
Ma'am Tess, Sir John Eric, Ma'am Bel.
Good morning po.
Okay. Okay. Okay, di po tayo nakakita last meeting kasi nasa field po kami. It's a project related to Sasmuan, Pampanga Coastal Wetlands. So we stayed there for 2 days para mag-gather ng data. Okay. So I believe this also the supposedly yung pong discussion natin on the allelopathic responses or reactions ay yung pong naka-assign sa inyo na I group you into 2 and you will be presenting them today. So ganito po muna yung gawin natin. I'll finish first yung pong topic natin for this is our last topic, yung pong sa stress physiology. Then after po nun, we'll have our last presenter for yung sa ating Pecha Kucha, yung pong short presentation. Sino lang ba yung last natin?
Ako po, Doc.
Okay. So, Ma'am Tricia, yeah. Then we'll have the 2 reports, yung pong group reports po natin. Okay po ba tayo doon? Para po tapusin na muna natin yung lecture. Yes, Sir Joel.
Sir, inform lang po namin kayo kasi yung experience din ng mga classmates yung Genomio, parang nag-down yata.
Yes sir, nag-down nga po siya. Ano ko po siya ngayon? Atay dito. Naka-maintenance mode siya. Pero di-disable ko po siya. Hindi-disable ko na po siya. So working na po siya today. Pero yung pong submission, I have to i-ano na lang po natin yung submission ng reports after na lang po ng klase natin for today.
Thank you po.
Sige po. Okay. So this is our last topic. Then I think if you agree with me, hindi ko to supposedly open ko siya nung huling meeting natin. If we want, mag-schedule po tayo ng inyong final exam. But your final exam will be face-to-face. Kung okay lang po sa inyo, sir. I think sina Sir Joel and Ma'am Bel, malayo kasi sila. Para naman po magkita-kita tayo before matapos itong semester. Sige po, pag-usapan na lang natin siya mamaya. Okay? So let me share my screen. Again, this is our last topic for today. So this is all about stress. So stress physiology yung pag-uusapan po natin. So just like human beings, even plants, they are exposed to different stressors. So for this topic, we'll be talking about the following. So how the stress to life as an inevitable phenomenon, the solar radiation stress, the temperature stress, the stress of oxygen deficiency, salinity stress, heat stress, pollution stress, heavy metal stress, and water stress. So these are the various stresses among the crops or among the plants in general. So according to Grime, stress in relation to plants, they are described as external constraints that limit the rate of dry matter production or growth of all or part of the vegetation. Meaning, these are the things na kapag kulang siya or sobra siya, nagiging stressful para sa mga halaman yon at nagkukos yon ng probably nalilimit yung kanilang growth or worse, namamatay sila. So these external constraints, they arise out of negative or adverse environmental factors, including pollution that induce physiological responses in living species or alter the structure and functioning of an ecosystem. So itong stress, among plants, dahil iba-iba yung, the distribution of the environmental factors in different areas, hindi yan, it's very dynamic. It's not similar. So, kumbaga, hindi siya homogeneous sa isang area. So, sometimes, merong mataas yung isang factor, mababa yung isang factor. And all of this contributes doon sa constraints para mag-develop yung isang halaman. Now, stress is a very complex phenomenon and yet almost inevitable for organisms and their communities. So, in some cases, stress is occasional, meron naman frequent, and yet in other cases, permanent itong stress na to. Thus, yung ating environmental conditions, they are very static. This is what I'm trying to say a while ago, that the conditions of the environment, yung state ng mismong lugar kung saan nakatira ang isang halaman, hindi yan parang static. Kumbaga hindi yan stable lang sa isang level. It varies depending on other conditions. And sometimes these conditions, they become less, they become more due to anthropogenic factors. So yung mga activities na ginagawa ng tao, it also results into such kind of changes or then therefore stresses sa ating mga organisms, particularly sa ating mga plants. Now, life on Earth in essence faces stresses in several ways. However, at the same time, organisms tend to attain homeostasis and consequently to be in the state of acclimatization and adaptation. So itong stress na to, it actually the organism, plants in particular, they have to adapt to this kind of stresses. So they need to respond to this kind of stresses para mabuhay sila. So in this way, they are learning to adapt. So just like in when we go to a particular place, halimbawa tayo pupunta sa ibang bansa, let's say dito na lang sa Pilipinas. When we go to a colder area, if you're coming from Pampanga, if you're coming from Central Luzon or NCR, when you go to a certain place, usually kung hindi sanay yung katawan mo, lalagnatin ka kung pupunta ka sa malamig na lugar. So this is actually our response doon sa mga stress na yon. And that is our way of acclimatizing doon sa area. So when we say acclimatization, that is the place, that is the time wherein nag-a-adjust yung physiological characteristics ng isang organism para makapag-adapt siya doon sa stress na existing doon sa area na yon. So that is same is true with the plants. So most cases, animals, minsan ang adaptive mechanism nila, since they are mobile organisms, they just move. But for organisms just like plants na stationary lang sila at hindi sila gumagalaw, the way they respond to this kind of stresses, it's different. So, but primarily, they have to maintain yung homeostasis. I mean, they have to be stable physiologically. So, itong stresses, homeostasis, acclimatization, and adaptation go on the same axis of the phenomenon of life. So, parte siya ng buong buhay, particularly ng ating mga halaman. And this phenomenon is influenced and controlled by the physiological changes within the organisms. So in this case, itong stress talaga, it's inevitable, meaning hindi talaga siya maiiwasan. And if plants or crops do not respond to this kind of stresses, kasi hindi nga sila nakakapag-move, sometimes in that area nagiging permanent yung mismong stress na yon. So there is no way na hindi makakapag-adapt doon sa or makakagawa ng response, physiological response, itong mga halaman patungkol doon sa stress na yon. So there are various stresses or stressors or stress na naranasan yung mga halaman natin. So the following are solar radiation stress, temperature stress, stress of oxygen deficiency, salinity stress, heat stress, low temperature stress, pollution stress, heavy metal stress, and water stress. So let's start with the solar radiation. So yung ating mga halaman, they are known as, mostly yung green plants natin, they are known as phototrophs. So itong mga photoautotropes, they depend on the solar radiation for their survival and sustenance. And they need light para makapag-process or para ma-drive yung photosynthesis. In our previous discussion, there is, I think I captured I presented a video talking about this various range, yung short wavelength, long wavelength of radiation. And itong long wave energy radiation, particularly infrared, it has lesser amount of energy and it cannot actually drive yung photosynthesis. So yung short wave energy wavelength, ito yung may energy, and if become excessive, it can inhibit cellular processes by damaging yung membranes, proteins, and nucleic acids. So this diagram, it shows actually yung pinaka light saturation point ng photosynthesis caused by light stress. So kapag nagkaroon ng light stress, it will inhibit or it will lead to photoinhibition by disrupting the chloroplast structure and reducing photosynthetic rates. So there is an optimal photosynthetic rates, meaning this light is optimum. It's good for, it can drive the photosynthesis. Now, going beyond this optimum light, it will already result into photoinhibition that may be dynamic or it may be chronic. So ibig sabihin itong chronic, this is continuous photoinhibition, especially if there is a very high light intensity comparing doon sa moderate. So ibig sabihin kahit saan naman ba, kahit anong sobra, kahit anong kulang, minsan nakakasama siya doon sa isang case. So this is about solar radiation. Next, temperature stress. So yung growth ng ating mga halaman, the optimal growth and overall development of organism, meron yan particular range. So merong mga species na mas narrow yung kanilang range, ibig sabihin, in this range lang pwedeng mabuhay or kaya mag-flourish nitong mga organisms na to. Now, going beyond this temperature range, sometimes they experience damage depending on the magnitude and duration of this temperature fluctuation. So in other words, an organism will be under stress if the temperature fluctuates beyond a range in which it is unable to maintain its normal physiological state. So itong klaseng stress na to, it is due to the following. So kapag mataas ang temperature, kapag mababa ang temperature above the melting point, and low temperature below the freezing point. So these ranges, mapataas yan, bababa yan, it will cause temperature stress sa ating mga halaman. Now, it has various effects, itong temperature stress. Una, again, on the photosynthesis and respiration. So when the temperature is high, it will inhibit the rate of photosynthesis more than of those respiration. Also, kapag mataas ang temperature, the enzymes in the chloroplast na involve doon sa photosynthesis, such as rubisco activase, phosphoenol pyruvate, carboxylase, and NADPG3P dehydrogenase. Ito mga to, this was presented already in the previous topics. They go unstable in this kind of temperature. So affecting all of this, particularly yung ating mga enzymes, which is very much essential doon sa production ng carbohydrates, doon sa system ng isang halaman, masisira yung pinaka-proseso or yung rate, yung dami ng photosynthesis na pwedeng carbohydrates na pwedeng produce due to photosynthesis maapektuhan. So another effect of temperature stress is yung effect on membranes and enzymes. So specific actions of the integral membrane proteins, these are very sensitive doon sa ating is very sensitive doon sa properties ng mismong lipid constituent of the cell membrane. Now, exposure of the plants to high temperature results in an increase in membrane lipid fluidity coupled with a decrease in hydrogen bonding rate. So meaning, yung mismong cell membrane nadidisrupt siya. More so, kapag nagkaroon ng problem doon sa cell membrane, ibig sabihin, there are some ions yung pwedeng lumabas, may mga some substances na pwedeng pumasok doon sa mismong cell, and it will cause doon sa malfunction ng buong plant cell. So that's how a high temperature can cause effects on the membranes and enzymes of the plant cells. Now, pagdating naman sa low temperature, yung low temperature kapag sobrang baba ng temperature ay pwedeng makamatay sa ating mga halaman. What is happening in here is nagkakaroon tayo ng intercellular crystallization. So remember that our cells are made up of, it is mainly composed of water. So meaning, kapag nagkaroon ng intercellular crystallization, yung ating water, it's somehow forming a crystal. Para so nagyayelo siya in a way, in layman's term. So in this case, yung ating mga organelles doon sa loob ng ating cell, masisira sila. So it will cause yung pagkamatay ng mismong halaman. So according to the reference that I'm using, the external crystal formation is not as harmful as the internal. So yung nakikita natin na nagyayelo yung halaman, particularly on those cold areas in the temperature regions, kapag nagyayelo sila, externally, it's not as harmful as it is pagdating doon sa internal. Kasi pag internal na yung pinag-uusapan, we are now talking about doon sa cell at the cellular level, yung interaction, yung mga functions ng ating mga organelles and cell membrane are also affected. So these are the various effects that we can see pagdating doon sa in terms of temperature. All right, let's proceed with the oxygen deficiency. So yung ating mga yung plant roots natin of plant roots in the terrestrial ecosystems, they get adequate supplies of oxygen necessary for aerobic respiration. So in well-drained and well-structured soils, there are gas-filled pores through which gases, including oxygen, diffuse several meters deep and become available to the plant roots. So dito importante yung aeration ng soil. If the soil is too compact, hindi nakakahinga yung mismong roots, hindi nakakahinga yung mismong halaman. Now, oxygen in deeper soil layers can be compared with that in the humid air. However, a continuous supply of oxygen, inadequate amounts to plant roots is frequently impaired in the flooded and waterlogged soils. So, dito na papasok yung mga, we have plants na they can thrive in this kind of ecosystem, but in general, yung mga crops natin, they don't have this kind of characteristics. So if the soils are not well drained and if irrigation is excessive, the water fills up soil pores and movement of oxygen in the gaseous phase is slowed down considerably. And ang nangyayari, hindi nakakahinga yung mismong roots natin. Now, when the plants are dormant and ambient temperatures are low, oxygen depletion in standing water is slow. And such state of the environment is not very harmful for the terrestrial plants. However, when the plants are in an active phase and temperatures are higher, oxygen consumption by soil microflora and fauna and by the plants themselves increases to the extent that the soil in stagnant water gets completely deprived of oxygen. So in this condition, nagiging stress na to sa ating mga halaman. So this is already a stress imposed by oxygen deficiency. Next, salinity stress. So alat. So the evaporation, so kapag nag-evaporate yung ating water, anyway, yung evaporation depending yan, it always depend on the temperature. So kapag mas mataas ang temperature, mas mataas yung rate of evaporation. Now, kapag mataas ang rate of evaporation, yung mga tumataas yung solute concentration kasi nag-evaporate itong water. So this is a natural process na nangyayari. It's actually part of the system. But if there is an increasing temperature at masyadong mataas yung solute concentration, particularly yung ating salt, it will cause yung masisira yung it will induce osmotic pressure. So tataas, magko-flush out yung excessive salts. If-flush out niya yung buong system. So that's in this case, yung salt concentration in the soils, it reaches a level na nagiging masama na siya sa ating mga halaman. So especially yung mga salt sensitive species. So aside from the evaporation, kasama din dito yung transpiration. So this is also a natural process na nangyari sa ecosystem. These two processes is part of the water cycle. But going into into higher temperature, kapag tumaas ito, tataas yung rate, tataas yung solute concentration, which is already detrimental doon sa growth ng mga species. Now, in most cases, ang nangyayari is nagkakaroon tayo ng discoloration. So discoloration of leaf and decreased absorption of water by plants by plants because of the high concentrations of sodium and chlorine. So itong sodium and chlorine, the salt, it will be accumulated by the chloroplast, then it will impede yung ating photosynthesis. Now yung ating photosynthetic electron transport, this very sensitive insensitive doon sa salts. So as a result, nagkakaroon tayo ng problem doon sa carbon metabolism. So phosphorylation or carbon metabolism yung naapektuhan. But we have plants, let's say there are plants that grow in saline water. So halimbawa ng mga nag-grow sa saline water, yung ating yung mga mangroves. But in this table, these are species that respond. Yung sensitivity ng mga species, it shows the sensitivity of the species as sensitivity to salt, sensitivity to salinity. So yung ating citrus, pecan, maize, bean, onion, lettuce, they are highly sensitive to the salt. So yung barley, cotton, moderately tolerant to salt. Then yung date, palms, sugar beet, these are highly tolerant doon sa salt. So basically, yung ating mga most of the crops that we are familiar with, they are very sensitive doon sa ating salt. Now, as I've been mentioning a while ago, there are some species that are resistant. They can handle this kind of salinity, yung mataas na salinity. Example nga ay yung mga bakawan o yung mga mangroves natin. So they can thrive in this kind of in saline water, particularly sa ating mga estuaries. But for those plants that are exposed to such kind of salinity, meron naman responses. So there is an adaptive mechanism, there is a mechanism ng ginagawa ng halaman. So this is a way of it's their strategy in minimizing salt injury. So caused by the salt. So ang ginagawa nila is they have this particular plant part, the Casparian strips. So in using this Casparian strips, na-restrict yung movement ng mga ions into the xylem. So if the Casparian strips are to be bypassed, so ions will move from the apoplast to the symplastic pathway across all membranes. Now the salt-resistant plants derive an advantage from this transition by using these mechanisms for partially excluding toxic ions. So ang ginagawa ng ating mga halaman, they minimize yung movement ng salt para hindi maapektuhan yung buong system or yung buong mismong plant. Now, there are also plants in saline environments that respond to this kind of osmotic stress by adjusting their water potential. So, paano nila ginagawa to? They decrease the solute concentration or the solute potential. How? By two functions. Intracellular functions. So one is the ion accumulation in the cell vacuoles and yung synthesis of compatible solutes in the cytosol, such as sucrose, sorbitol, mannitol, pinitol, and glycine, betaine, and proline. So these solutes, they are compatible with salt na nare-reduce yung effect ng mismong salt para magkaroon ng balance. Kasi usually what happened when let's say human beings, when we are exposed to salt, yung too much salt, ang nangyayari is halimbawa lang kapag nag-beach tayo and we are exposed to this kind of salinity, high salinity, sometimes we feel dehydrated. So that is same is true with the plants because nagkakaroon ng osmotic pressure. So it flushes out the water doon sa mismong mga cells natin. So to balance it out, there are other solutes na pwedeng produce na compatible dito para mag-balance yung mismong osmosis, ma-maintain yung homeostasis doon sa isang system. So these are the strategies being done by the plants. Now the next stress that we'll be talking about is the heat stress. So heat stress, this is very much related also doon sa ating temperature stress. So the range, as mentioned a while ago, the range of temperatures for plants, it varies. So mas malaki yung range of temperature ng mga plants as compared doon sa ating mga animals. So most of the higher plants would not survive if the temperature range toward the higher side exceeded 45 degrees Celsius for an extended period. So single-celled eukaryotes can survive and complete their life cycles at temperatures above 50%, while prokaryotes, they can thrive at temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. Now, what is happening at high temperatures, yung water, nagiging limiting factor siya because tumataas yung rate natin ng evaporation. And this case, water is a very much important element as important factor sa ating ecosystem because this helps yung transfer or yung movement ng ating mga nutrients coming from the soil. So, nagiging limiting factor kapag mataas yung ating temperature. Now, there is now in this case, we can see the relationship between water and temperature stresses. But for some plants, meron silang tinatawag na evaporative cooling. So particularly sa ating mga C3 and C4 plants, with access to abundant water helps them maintain survival and functioning below 45 degrees Celsius. So evaporative cooling decreases if water becomes a limiting factor, and under such condition, yung tissue temperature, it increases. If the water scarcity endures, then tissue temperature above 45 degrees Celsius becomes lethal for the plants. Usually, we are talking about yung mga cactus that they can store actually water in the plant system itself. Now for its effect, itong heat stress natin, katulad nung temperature stress, naapektuhan yung ating photosynthesis and respiration, but more of yung photosynthesis. So what is happening is nasisira yung mismong tinatawag natin na compensation point. So meron tayong tinatawag na temperature compensation point, in which yung carbon dioxide fixed by photosynthesis is equal doon sa carbon dioxide released by the carbon and oxygen released by means of respiration in a particular time. So when the temperatures rise above the compensation point, ang nangyayari is the carbon used by respiration is not replaced by photosynthesis, meaning hindi nagiging balanse. So as a consequence, yung ating carbohydrate reserves ng halaman, naubos yan in a faster pace. So heat stress leads to a decline in sweetness in fruits and vegetables. So yun yung nagiging cause nito. So kaya may mga cases na yung mga ating kinakain, particularly ating mga vegetables, ay parang mas pumapait sila because of the too much or yung excess use na exhaust na ubos yung carbohydrate reserves na present doon sa mismong halaman na yun. So that is induced by heat. Now, yung ating heat ay may effect din siya sa cell membrane. So exposure of plant tissues to high temperatures for a longer period leads to modification in membrane composition and structure. So ang nangyayari, nasisira or nawawala yung strength ng ating hydrogen bonds and electrostatic interaction between proteins polar groups with aqueous phase of the membrane. So in this case, kapag nawala yung strength ng ating hydrogen bonds, yung mga ions na dumadaan dito, yung mga ions na necessary doon sa cell membrane, they will leak. So yung mismong proseso ng cell membrane natin and the organelles present will become then affected. So since photosynthesis and cellular respiration depend on the activity of membrane-associated electron carriers and enzymes, these vital processes are inhibited, and it will result to cellular disruptions due to heat stress. Okay? Now, anong ginagawa ng mga halaman when they are exposed to such stress? So, talking about evolution, mayroon tayong mga plant species, they have dissected leaves. Ibig sabihin, mas fine sila, leaves nila, and this will reduce yung heat loss. Kumbaga, na-maximize yung heat loss through convection and conduction. So, hindi naapektuhan yung mismong halaman. Now, when the temperature rises to the tune of 5 degrees Celsius to 10 degrees Celsius, there are some plants that develop a protection mechanism by producing a unique set of proteins referred to as HSPs or heat shock proteins. Now, these heat shock proteins, they protect the plants against heat stress, acting as a molecular chaperone. So the molecular chaperone, it will help the misfolded and aggregated proteins to undergo proper folding and prevent misfolding and unwanted protein aggregation. So tama yung nagiging tama yung nagiging system nila. So this is a protection mechanism done by the plants, in particular, in response to a certain type of temperature range. Now, okay, let's proceed with the next one. So let's talk about the low temperature stress. So related din naman to. But this time we're talking about coldness. So prolonged exposure to cold induces adverse changes in the physiology of the plants, plus yung overall performance niya. So yung mga halaman na from subtropical and tropical plants coming from these tropical, subtropical, and tropical regions, they are especially prone to cold stress. So ang nangyayari kapag these plants are exposed to low temperature, they will experience chilling stress and freezing stress. Now, in response to this, ang ginagawa ng ating mga halaman, they have this process known as signal transduction. So this is a particular mechanism that induces the activation of transcription factors and cold responsive genes, in which in turn control the damage done by cold stress and help impart tolerance to the affected plants. So this diagram, pinapakita niya lang kung ano yung nangyayari when these plants are exposed to this kind of stress, yung low temperature stress or cold stress. So the cold stress will actually induce yung metabolic imbalance and dysfunction, na nasisira yung mismong carbohydrate metabolism, carbon metabolism, plasma membrane disintegration, and solute leakage. Now, ang gagawin ng halaman, it will undergo dito sa process na to, signal transduction, that will activate the transcription and stress responsive genes. Now, in this case, na nami-minimize yung damage at nagkakaroon ng repair dun sa mismong system ng halaman. So, therefore, nagkakaroon din sila ng cold stress tolerance. These are actually the symptoms na nakikita na yung isang halaman ay experiencing chilling stress. So it may be phenotypic, anatomical, or physiological. So phenotypic, the usual stunted plant growth, cracking, splitting, dieback of system, curling, crinkling of leaves, hardening ng stomata. Now, anatomical, we're talking about naman dito yung pinaka-structure ng mismong halaman internally. So sa cell membrane, may changes doon sa membrane structure and composition, vascular browning, there is a swelling of plastid and mitochondrial membrane, and so on and so forth. So basically, yung mismong cell yung apektado dito. Physiologically or metabolically, we're talking about yung, of course, increased susceptibility to decay. There is a loss of vigor, yung mismong yung rate of production, the normal fruit ripening failure, so loss of membrane function, damage of chloroplast and mitochondria, and so on and so forth. So basically, these are the things that will tell us that that a plant is already experiencing cold stress or chilling stress. Now, pollution. So, yung pollution natin, of course, nagkakos yan ng environmental stress in general. So, yung environmental stress natin, they are caused by variety of pollutants, and this imposes physical, chemical, and biological constraints, not only on the species productivity, but also on the structure and functions of an ecosystem. So the environmental stress exerted by pollutants, in addition, and maybe over and above, is what caused by natural environmental stressors. So yung pollutants can be physical, such as intensive radiation, wildfire, high or low temperature, maybe chemical, gaseous, liquid, solid, or biological, or yung presence ng other organisms in nature. So we are looking now plants as part of the ecosystem. So kasi yung pollution, yung mga pollutants natin, it will not just only cause yung stress dun sa mismong halaman, but doon sa habitat kung saan nakatira or saan nagsusurvive, kung saan nagtathrive itong mga halaman natin. Now, pollution, it will occur when the pollutants are present in concentrations large enough to affect the organisms and their ecosystems. So, iba-iba yung mga pollutants na available. Or iba-iba yung mga pollutants, iba-iba yung effect niya. So, example for radiation, as discussed a while ago. Now, wildfire, of course, too much heat, taas yung temperature, most cases, mamamatay yung mga halaman. Okay, next, heavy metals. We've been hearing heavy metals in most of the studies. So nakikita natin na based on these studies, makita natin and the interest of the scientists on how these heavy metals affect yung mga plants, nakita natin doon na iba yung epekto niya. So it will cause toxicity dun sa mismong halaman. Now, these heavy metals, it is a term used to metals and semi-metals or metalloids that are associated with contamination, potential toxicity, or ecotoxicity. So the heavy metals, it represents a large group of chemical elements with relatively high density, high atomic numbers, and high atomic mass. So these elements, they do not decay with time. Now, heavy metal pollution in aquatic ecosystem is caused by means of toxicity, reduced growth and morphological, histological, and behavioral changes among organisms. So ang nangyayari dito, of course, the heavy metal, since it will not decay over time, kapag na-accumulate yan ng mga halaman, it will disrupt the processes doon sa physiologically, madi-disrupt yung mismong halaman. Now, yung heavy metal pollution, it will result to the following. So, inactivation of biomolecules. Second, it inhibits the photosynthesis and transpiration and suppresses metabolic processes that is necessary for the sustainability of life. Affected din yung signal transduction. What happens in here is yung gene expression pattern, it change. So nagkakaroon ng changes doon sa mismong genes affected. So it alter yung mismong codon na need to trigger yung signal transduction. Then, of course, may effect yan sa mga cellular components, particularly doon sa particular organelles doon sa cell. So yung lipid peroxidation chain begins taking place due to the production of ROS species in chloroplast, plasma membranes, mitochondria, peroxisomes, apoplast, and lipid peroxidation, on account of which the unsaturated fatty acids are converted to saturated ones, leading to wall disruption. And yung wall ng mismong plant cell, this is essential in protecting yung mismong organelles na present doon sa cell. Kumbaga, parang nag-burst sila. Now, okay, last stress. The last slide. So, water stress. So, I've been mentioning na kanina that water it's very much important. Actually, yung water, kapag nagkaroon ng kakulangan sa water, multidimensional yung effect niya. Multidimensional in a sense that it will affect other functions. Other factors or other stressors. So water deficit, it occurs when there is water supply, when the water supply to plant roots is limiting or limited. So in this situation, plants suffer from water stress, and this situation is rare in case of deep-rooted woody perennials, but can occur in case of shallow-rooted annuals, especially yung mga annual food crops natin. So yung water deficit, yung water, as we've been talking about in the previous chapters, yung water, it transports the nutrients doon sa system ng isang halaman. And water is very much dependent on temperature, very much dependent on heat. It also dependent doon sa salinity, doon sa solute concentration. So nakadepende siya in other abiotic factors in the area, in the ecosystem in which these plants or crops live. So kapag naapektuhan, kulang ng water, we can expect that the production or food production is affected. The productivity of the plants is affected. Now, in this, in your screen, you can see yung different morphological, anatomical, and cytological responses when water nagkaroon ng water stress doon sa halaman. So morphologically, decrease in leaf size, catenation of leaf surface, increase in root shoot ratios, decrease in root dry weight, decrease in total leaf area, decrease in leaf area plasticity. Now, anatomically, bababa yung number ng stomata, under development yung conductive system that maintains the heat for yung mismong system, body. The early senescence induce o pwede mamatay agad yung halaman. So, kumbaga, tatanda siya agad at mamamatay. Submersion of stomata in xerophytes. Now, cytological, thickening of cell wall. So, when the cell wall thickens, the ions na kailangan pumasok doon sa mismong plant cell ay hindi na makakapasok because it thickens. So, kumbaga, yung mismong membrane that protects the cell, it limits now yung mga nutrients and other substances necessary for the functions of the organelles. Then lastly, nagkakaroon ng reduced number of cells. So basically, itong topic natin for today, we are talking about on the stress that are available. Stress na pwedeng mag-cause doon sa stress na part siya doon sa system or doon sa pamumuhay ng isang halaman. And considering these stresses, we can see that plants, crops, they have their own mechanism of adjusting doon sa changes na nangyari doon sa environment nila. And sometimes, itong mga stress na to, it will, looking at a positive note, it will actually push for the evolution of some of our plants, of some of our crops. So this stress, kumbaga, if we are looking into stress ng mga, I'll like to use yung I'll use the analogy pagdating doon sa stress and human beings, in which we can appreciate it more. In a way, stress, nakakatulong yan on a positive note sa tao, because when you are exposed to this kind of stress, when you surpass this stress, your tolerance level will increase. So that is a positive note. So that is similar with the plants. So for the plants, for the crops when they are exposed to stress and they were able to acclimatize, they were able to adjust to this kind of stresses, they will create this kind of tolerance as well. So, and more so, ang nangyayari, if this stress is permanent, yung stress na to, it will trigger yung more changes doon sa morphology and physiology ng isang halaman that will create it will create plasticity. Yung plasticity, usually phenotypic plasticity, ibig sabihin nag-change siya ng characteristics in response doon sa environment. Then eventually it will lead doon sa evolution of another species. So that's how it is, that's how good it is. So I would like to talk about yung this another analogy that we can infer to, yung considering yung pamumuhay. Let's talk about the evolution of a man. So we have Neanderthals, we have different species, Homo habilis, Homo erectus. So these homos, they have different morphologically, they are different. So yung itong characteristic na to, naging available siya in response doon sa stress na available during that time. So dahil mas malamig, they live in a very cold environment, so they have thicker skin, they have this kind of fur. So yun yung nagti-trigger, yun yung phenotypic plasticity that we can that I'm referring to a while ago. So ganun din doon sa ating mga halaman. And these plants, understanding the mechanisms of the stress, will be able to adjust. Tayo naman na tao na nag-aalaga sa mga crops natin, we will be able to manage them properly. So we know what might they need. We know na, okay, it's too much heat. So ano yung kailangan natin gawin para matulungan sila mag-survive in this kind of stress. But what I'm trying to say is, stress sa mga halaman, they have these mechanisms, but of course, as human beings, we can also help them to adapt to such kind of stresses. Kasi basically, sometimes yung mechanism nila, hindi lang yan sometimes enough. But if this mechanism na available sa plants, they were able to adapt on their own, it will lead to phenotypic plasticity. Then later on, lilitaw yan sa gene expression. Then later on, it may result to the evolution of another species or another variety in a different sense. So that concludes our topic, yung presentation natin for today, talking about yung stress, talking about the physiology of plants in response to stress. So now, I would like to ask kayo, in your field, how were you able to encounter such? Were you able to namamatay yung aking wait lang, nawawala yung aking camera. Ayan mo ba? Okay, so going back to my question, so were you able to encounter in your field itong stress sa mga plants na to? But I believe baka yung the usual na naranasan natin yung nutrient deficiency, water deficiency, o yung water stress. But were you
Yes,
able to
sir.
encounter such? Okay, sige po. You can share, Ma'am Tess.
ano po, effects po ng climate change ngayon. Dati po ganitong panahon, sir, naka-second crop na po yung mga farmers namin. Pero ngayon po naghihintay po ng ulan ulit. Ayun po, yun lang po, sir.
Okay, yeah. Dahil iba-iba yung panahon ngayon, yung timing nung crops natin. So sometimes nagkakulangan ng another cropping season. Okay, thank you, Ma'am Tess. How about the others po? Who would like to share their experience in one way or another on this kind of stress, plant stresses? Okay, so unang nagtaas ng kamay po si Sir John Eric, then afterwards si Ma'am Bell. Okay, Sir John Eric.
Yes, sir. Good morning po.
Morning.
In our naman sa experience ko, mostly, sir, water stress ang naging problem. May mga napapansin kami sa water stress. So, just like in Lakar, na actually multi-stress pala siya, no? Nutrient, water, yan. So, what we do, we incorporate nutrients to mitigate yung mga detrimental effects nung kulang sa tubig. For example, on lahar soil, so particularly on soybean, kitang-kita naman na dahil nga lahar siya, mababa ang kanyang water holding capacity. We do experiments on increasing yung kanyang root length, no? So, on the phosphorus side. So, ganun namin siya, for example, just one way of sharing din po is kung paano namin minimitigate yung problem na yun. And then, mostly nga, like din sa rice din, sa upland rice, yan, napakakulang po ng tubig dyan sa upland rice. Varietal species naman po ang tinatry natin na magta-thrive because field rice and other institutions already develop mga varieties na can adapt well. Actually, kami sa regional office, more on adapting ang aming mga strategy to increase yung productivity na tinatawag natin. Kasi lagi sinasabi ng farmers yan one of their problems aside from marketing is mababa yung production. So that's our main or madalas naming na-encounter sa field. And also din po, totoo yung sinabi ni Ma'am Teresita, yung climate change, no? So kailangan talaga natin tutukan ng pansin, tutukan ng investments on developing technologies addressing this climate change. Ayun po, sir. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you, John Eric, sa inyong sharing. So, Sir John Eric shared yung effort nila in addressing itong particular na water deficiency at the same time yung nutrient deficiency, water deficit and nutrient deficiency. Okay, so let's hear it naman po from Ma'am Bell. Ma'am Bell.
Hello po, good morning po sa ating lahat. So, i-share ko lang po yung dito po sa amin sa Aurora na di ba po kadalasan na dinadaanan po siya ng bagyo. So, may mga times po talaga na malakas po yung ulan, malakas po yung hangin. So, na-experience po namin dito na yung mga palay po, no, ng ating mga farmers ay talagang dumadapa po. So, in-advisean po namin sila sa agency po namin na pwede po silang magtanim, no, ng mas maliit po or mas mababa po na plant stature para hindi po mag-lodge yung kanilang mga palay. And then yung timing po siguro ng pagtatanim and yung excessive use po ng application ng nutrients, no, or for example yung ating nitrogen kasi cause po siya ng paglambot po ng tissue ng ating rice. So yun po yung ilan sa mga sinasabi po namin sa kanila to mitigate po yung or maiwasan po yung pagdapa ng kanilang mga palay. Yun lamang po, Doc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Bell. So this is naman, it's in particular doon sa ating rice. So, okay, thank you po, Ma'am Bell. How about the others? Ma'am Tricia, Sir Joel, Sir Rafael. Yes, Sir Joel.
Morning po. Good morning po, Sir Gerald and classmates. Mag-share lang po ako ng kaunti. Last Thursday po, we were in an official visit po sa isang research experiment station sa Chaong, yung CARES. And we were in a discussion in coming up with a development program for cacao. In fact, kaharap po namin doon yung mga stakeholders like the private, the farmer cooperatives, association, yung mga researchers po natin sa DA, at saka yung sa Southern Luzon State University. So, part po na naging discussion doon, yung may mga on the side lang na napag-usapan, like yung response ng cacao to different temperature. I don't know if I got this correctly from our lead researcher in the CARES. Sabi niya may effect ang temperature kasi parang mas preferred ng cacao yung mas malalamig kaysa dun sa may init. So mas tumatagal yung growth and development ng cacao kung may init. And I think this can be associated, if I'm not mistaken, may nakita po ko doon sa isang slide ninyo, sir, about root and shoot ratio. So I think it's a natural response. Kung ano ang stress niya, doon nagpo-focus yung halaman. So kung napukulang sa tubig, ang fino-focus niya yung roots na mag-develop para makakuha, makakompensate. And yet, habang tumataas ang temperature, it's really very difficult for the cacao plant and probably most other plants to uptake yung water. So ang nangyayari, yung shoot, hindi kagad nag-grow. So therefore, yung performance ng cacao, imbis na mabilis ka maka-harvest o maka-develop ng shoot and later yung fruits, ay tumatagal. I think that's one effect, no? Yun nga, parang homeostasis binabalanse niya So kailangan balanse. In fact, yun po yung isang na-discuss po sa amin. Kaya in terms of developmental work, talagang yung suitability and adaptability of crops to certain climatic condition has to be of primary consideration. Nabanggit po yung climate change. Tama po yan, climate adaptation. Kaya I believe there are so many research work, specifically breeding work, na ginawa na po for that purpose. Sa rice po, nabanggit kanina ni Sir Eric, marami na pong mga advent in rice research, yung mga saline tolerant, drought resistant, waterlogging resistant. Yan po talaga yung way to go, no? Kasi this kind of ito pong topic natin na to would really have very good application pagdating sa breeding and advanced genomics. We know that breeding takes a whole lot of time, 5-10 years, ganyan in the making. Pero I think with advancement in genomics, tapos may gene editing na ngayon, baka mas mapabilis na po natin yan. And then I think towards the end po, yun nga po, I think I have mentioned this quite repeatedly na po dito sa course, dito po sa ating subject as part of my sharing. Yun nga pong indoor farming, ang laki po ng ng benefit sana. Kaso this is a very costly technology. I think the private sector is to invest in this, not the farmers. Pero yung climate control, it's really addressing the natural stresses in this open environment situation, no? Isipin natin dito, for example, I seen one documentary. Kasi alam ko familiar tayo sa hydroponics, no? Water-based na nga, solution siya, wala na sa lupa. Pero yung aeroponics po na napanood ko, it optimizes the application of water kasi misting ang ginagawa. So direct misting sa root system instead na nakababad sa tubig. So it minimizes the need for much water to come in. That's the principle of aeroponics. I think it's in Singapore Marami na sila doon. And meron pang isang technology, yung ito talaga ay practical siguro, no? Parang common sense nga lang ginawa nila dito Indoor farming din siya, pero ang ginawa nila circular. So yung water loss due to evapotranspiration, nakaka-capture ng system. And then kino-condense nila, bumabalik din yung tubig. So walang nawawala. So Ang galing ng
Umiikot
system
lang.
niya. Umiikot lang po eh. Kasi kung hindi mo gagawin yun, wala. It goes back to the atmosphere. Pero ito, kinapture na niya eh. Bumabalik din. Alam naman natin ng condensation eh. Ganon din naman ang nangyari sa atin. Babalik sa cloud. Kaya lang, syempre, aantay ka pa ng nuclei para mag-condense yan. Saan nga yung ulan? Bumabagsak sa hindi mo kailangan. Kaya nga po maraming cloud seeding effort na minsan nagpe-fail eh. Kinaloud seed mo yung cloud cover, biglang bumagsak sa ibang lugar, doon sa hindi mo target. So anyway, yun lang naman po sir, sa mga encounters that I have and yun nga, mga nakita ko po in the field sa pakikipag-engage namin sa mga stakeholders. Yun lang po sir, thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you po, Sir Joel. But and also to add, there are some naman na halaman yung parang they have to be stressed, di ba? They have to be pruned para mas lumabong naman sila. So that's another response of the plants towards stress. So depende siya sa system. So one question na na-raise po ni Ma'am Bell kanina, doon sa chat natin sir, doon sa sharing mo, you're referring doon sa water recycling po, no? Doon sa isang system, indoor farming system.
Sir, may I ask, kasi nabanggit nyo, merong ibang halaman na kailangan ma-stress. Is this related, parang somehow connected dun sa flower induction ng mangga? Parang is that a form of stress para ma-force ma-flower siya, mag-flower siya?
Yes sir, yun po yung isang way of, that's also stress. So kumbaga yun yung positive stress, positive effect of the stress doon sa halaman, particularly mangga, yung pinapausukan and all. That improves yung, I think a particular phytochemical yung nag-improve doon sa when you prune or when you cut yung isang halaman. So thank you po Sir Joel for your sharing. Okay, si Sir Rafael and Ma'am Tricia. Sir Rafael.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my experience po is about water stress due to climate change. Nasobrahan po ng tubig yung mga tanim namin kamatis sa alias nun. Nag-prone po sila sa pest and disease. Kaya to address the water stress, we plant in greenhouse to controlled condition po. Yun lang po yung.
So instead na nasa plant sila, plot. So sa loob sila ng greenhouse.
Yes, sir.
Na itanim.
Yes po.
Okay. Okay, thank you Sir Rafael. So si Ma'am Tricia. Ma'am Tricia.
Yes po sir, good morning po. So based on our experience naman po sa mga rice area po namin, especially dun sa mga namamroblema sa tubig. So yung pong ginawa namin, nakipag-tie up po kami sa regional office to try different varieties na pang rain fed talaga na ano yung tolerant po nila sa water stress. At the same time, meron din po kaming experience sa mga farmers po namin, sa mga nagsisili. Yung practice po nila ay furrow irrigation. Ngayon, nagkakaproblema din po yung bunga nila, mas lumiliit dahil nga po sa sobrang init at mabilis pong mag-evaporate yung water. So yung ginawa po nila, nag-mulch po sila and then they shift into drip irrigation. Yan lang po. Thank you po.
So yung ginagawa natin, we sometimes most yung po narinig ko kanina. So if there are ang cases natin, ang ginagawa natin, it's either we change the environment or we change the crop itself. Parang if it's not effective. So we're doing these two things. And sometimes we infuse technology in growing these crops, these plants, especially if they are experiencing or especially if they are exposed to this kind of stressors or stress na experience nito yung this particular type of stress. Ayun. So talking about stress, actually, syempre una nating nakikita, ito yung parang na-experience din natin siya as human beings, itong mga stress na to. It might be not as yung response natin, it might not be as similar as how do plants respond. But basically, yung stress in both, it may be in plants, animals, or us human beings, nakakasama siya, but it also has positive effects if you will look at it in a different perspective. So thank you for your sharing dito po sa ating topic about stress. So again, this is already our last topic for environmental CS 301, crop physiology, environmental crop physiology. So I will just sum it up before po mag-present si Ma'am Tricia. I will just sum up yung ating napag-usapan po natin mula day 1 itong module natin. So marami na po tayong na-discuss. So for the past months, so we talk about different reactions on how plants respond to a particular abiotic factor, such as yung ating pong light, yung ating temperature. We also talk about yung pong about sa plants, about sa water, response ng reactions ng ating mga plants towards water, how plants respond to other plants. And now, yung ngayon naman pinag-usapan natin is paano naman tayo nakapag-respond paano naman nag-respond yung mga plants sa different types of stress. Basically, itong topics natin, it's very good, especially with the changing climate that we have. So these abiotic factors, these are part of the system, and understanding such ay makakatulong on how are we going to address yung food security, food stability. At the same time, paano tayo makakatulong doon sa ating environment in general. So with the changing climate that we have, and with our understanding of environmental crop physiology, we can help through our efforts tayo in different field or in different disciplines that we are familiar with, and in different occupation that you are exposed to, makatulong tayo sa ating mga stakeholders, sa ating mga farmers, particularly sa ating mga farmers. Yung mga topic natin, it may sound as technical as it is, but the good thing about this topic is we will know kung paano yung gagawin natin if our crops, our plants experience this kind of changes doon sa ating mga abiotic factors. And your sharing, yung pong sharing ng bawat isa, let's say yung pong mga topics na share ninyo, yung mga experiences ninyo, it's very valuable kasi we learned from the experiences of the others. Maganda nga po. I mean, I'm happy with the discussion that we are doing every Saturday kasi we will be able to relate yung technical matters doon sa real scenarios na nararanasan natin. And maganda din yung discussion because we have at the national scale. So parang si Sir Joel, nag-share siya doon sa national scale. We also learn doon sa the regional level, at the provincial level, and also at the municipal level. And also yung, of course, us, most dito ay taga Pampanga po. We're also learning from the experiences of Mambel, who reside in Aurora. So nakikita natin yung mga topics, yung mga scenarios in different levels. So that's the good thing about the discussion that we have. Okay? So Ma'am Tricia, are you ready?
Yes po, Doc. Hopefully, mabigyan ko po ng hustisya.
Kaya yan, ma'am.
Kinakabahan po ako.
Okay, parang, kapag po ano na po siya, Ma'am Trisha, you can start presenting kapag po nag-slideshow na siya. Okay po.
Okay po, Doc.
So,
Sige po.
share ko lang yung screen natin. Okay, so, lang.
Okay po, good morning po sa ating lahat. Ay, wala pa po pala, sorry.
Wait lang. Wait lang. Bilis. Wait lang. Ano nga? Ba't ang bilis ng transition? Teka lang po. Okay, kita ba sa screen, Ma'am?
Yes
Ma'am
po, Doc.
Trisha?
Okay na po. Yes po, Doc. Kita na po. Pero hindi pa po
Trisha,
siya
kita po ba?
naka-slideshow.
Sorry.
Yes po. Kaya lang hindi pa po siya naka-slideshow, sir.
Wait lang.
Okay na po.
Wait lang po. Using ko lang itong PowerPoint. Close ko lang po. Sorry. Okay, Ma'am Trisha,
Yan.
you may
Okay na po.
start.
Okay po, good morning po sa ating lahat. So I will be presenting to you the plant stress physiology na case study na
Ma'am Trisha?
ginawa po ni Timo Zintas. Yes po, sir. Ay, dinig po ako. Okay po, so I will be presenting to you the plant stress physiology conducted by Timo Zintas and Arzumot last December 15, 2021, entitled Morphophysiological Effects of Environmental Stress. Dinig po ako, sir.
Ma'am
Sir,
Trisha?
dinig po ako.
Yan ma'am, dinig na po.
Yan. Game na pa, sir.
Yes,
Okay po,
you may start.
Okay po. Good morning po sa ating lahat. So I will be presenting to you a case study related on plant stress physiology conducted by Timo Zintas and Arzumotlu, published last December 15, 2021, entitled Morphophysiological Effects of Environmental Stress and on Yield and Quality of Sweet Corn Varieties, or ZMAIS. So as an introduction, sweet corn is a type of maize harvested at fresh stage and consumed as vegetables, and it is not exempted on the effect of heat stress, which includes plants' physiological and metabolic processes, and also the level of abscisic acid of the plants, which is one of the important plant regulating hormone. So methodology, the site was conducted at Turkey, and it was conducted on 2-year growing periods, 2019 and 2020, and the experimental layout, randomized block with 3 replicates, and the data gathered are as follows. Yung pong pollen fertility rates, total soluble solids, abscisic acid, ear length, and plant height, etc. This is the geographical position of the study area, having the hottest and driest climate in Turkey, and the texture is clay type, and pH varies from 7.9 to 8. Okay, and then po, ito po yung important climatic values on the trial location, and it was recorded that on 2020, mas mataas po yung temperature niya from 40 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Celsius kaysa sa noong 2019, which is 37.9 degrees Celsius. And also the precipitation, mas mataas po yung pong 2019 kumpara ng 2020. And then, pinapakita din po dito sa graph na ito that during tasseling period, mas mataas po yung temperature ng 2020 compared on 2019. And then ito po yung mga sweet corn varieties and their characteristics. So gumamit po sila ng 10 variety, 8 from Turkey and 2 galing po sa USA as their control. And the ear color is yellow. At yan po yung mga ano nila, yung pong mga variety names. And fertilization, 40 kilograms per hectare yung pong ginamit na rate on fertilizer. And the irrigation, sprinkler and furrow method po yung ginamit. And on 2019, 5 times po silang nag-irrigate with 600 millimeter, while on 2020, 6 times po silang nag-irrigate with 670 millimeter. And cubs were harvested between 80 to 90 days, and 10 fresh cubs were collected from experimental crops, and total soluble solids was also gathered using a hand refractometer. And then, kinuha din po nila yung pollen fertility rate. 3 tassels from each sweet corn varieties were collected from each plant between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. during tasseling development period when the anthers begin to dehisce. So, gumamit po sila ng tripenyl tetrazolium chloride para ma-identify po yung pollen fertility rate. And then, abscisic acid level was also gathered. Kumuha po sila ng 10 flag leaves sa kada plant and per variety, and then ginamit po nila yung enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay or ELISA method to identify the ABA level. And then as the result of the study on the pollen fertility rate, makikita po natin na on year 2020, bumaba po yung pollen fertility rate into 30 to 50% due to high temperature and low humidity. Kung makikita po natin on year 2020, 50.28% lang po yung PFR. So on the total solubility, solid, so makikita po natin that highest TSS na ay nakita sa SDA 18.7 variety, and TSS parameter had a negative correlation with PFR, PCY, and yield components, while TSS had a positive effect on ABA. So ABA, yung pong ABA level was also recorded dun sa SDA 18.8, and the differences on environmental conditions between years has also effect on the differences of ABA levels. And then ear length, yung pong makikita po natin that the highest ear length was recorded on SDA 18.7, and lowest ear length na-record naman po natin sa 18.7 variety. Lower ear length value on the second year can be attributed. Yun, bumaba po ng dahil dun sa ano. And then plant height. Yung pong plant height ay na-record dun sa on the second year is lower dahil po sobrang nga pong init at mababa po yung relative humidity. And then the highest was recorded on that variety. And then number of grains per cob. Kung makikita po natin on year 2020, 323 grams of grains po yung nakuha nila. And then yung 2019, 359 po yung nakuha. So this can be attributed on the extreme temperature and low humidity. And then on the fresh cob yield, makikita po natin dito na mataas po, mataas yung nakakuha ng mataas na variety on PCY is SADA 18.7 variety rather than other varieties. And then this graph shows the na during high temperature, mababa po yung pollen fertility rate, mataas po yung abscisic acid, mataas yung total solubility solids, and mababa po yung fresh cob yield. And then as a conclusion, pollen fertility rate is an important index to environmental stress. At the same time, ABA hormone level will provide an important clues about the tolerance level and yield of sweet corn varieties. And ABA and PFR will save time and labor on breeding programs on variety adaptation. Yan po. Thank you po. Papagod ako.
Sige, so Ma'am Trisha, inom ka muna. Sige po, okay. So, palakpakan po natin, virtual clap to Ma'am Trisha for presenting her topic doon po sa morpho-physiological effects of environmental stress on yield and quality of sweet corn varieties. So, doon sa presentation ni Ma'am Trisha, so nakita po natin na iba-iba yung resulta, iba-iba yung responses ng different varieties doon sa ating sa environmental stress. So they talk about nila consider, I think, temperature. They also consider precipitation. And according, if I'm not doon sa bilis ng presentation ni Ma'am Trisha, so ang isa sa na-capture ko is that the pollen fertility is it's an important index of environmental stress. So meaning we can refer. So kung sakali, we'll check for the pollen fertility kung the plant is, particularly yung sweet corn, ay na-expose sa isang environmental stress. Tama ba yung understanding ko, Ma'am Trisha?
Yes po. Yes po, sir.
Right. So the discussion also talk about other particular hormone, yung abscisic acid. So abscisic acid is ABA. So abscisic acid is a particular hormone doon sa usually sa seed dormancy development process ng isang halaman. So dito yung ABA hormone, it regulates yung tolerance ng sweet corn towards temperature stress. No, Ma'am Trisha.
Yes po, Doc.
Okay. So any question po kay Ma'am Trisha? Okay, so I think tahimik. So wala na po sigurong question kay Ma'am Trisha. So si Ma'am Tess, I think na disconnect siya kasi kanina when she is answering, when she is sharing her experience, medyo nagkaroon ng lag doon sa pagkakasagot niya. So I believe na disconnect siya due to network or data, yung internet connection. Okay. Okay, so thank you po, Ma'am Trisha. So yun yung si Ma'am Trisha na yung last natin na presenter for last presenter for our Pecha Kucha, so dun sa topics natin. Now, we'll proceed with your presentations, yung group presentations for yung sa allelopathic responses. So, sino pong gustong mag-start? Mauna, yung group 1 po ba or group 2? Group 1 is comprised of 4. Balik ko lang yung listahan natin. 6. Yung pong group 1 po natin, si Sir John Eric, Sir Rafael, Ma'am Bell, Ma'am Tricia. Then group 2, si Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Virgie, and Sir Joel. So, mukhang magsusolo ka ata ngayon, Sir Joel.
Ako po ba, sir?
Yeah, doon sa allelopathic applications in agriculture.
Hindi po ba group 1, sir?
Sige, mauna na siguro group 1. Let's have group 1. Pagbigyan ko siguro si Sir Joel, na-disconnect si Ma'am.
Gulat ako. Nabigla ako, sir. Sorry.
Nagulat si, na-disconnect si Ma'am Tess, tapos hindi pa nakakapag-participate sa klase natin si Ma'am Virgie. So, pagbigyan na siguro si Sir Joel.
Okay lang po, sir, kung ano. Pero kung group 1, sir, mauna, mas okay.
Yeah. Let's have group 1 first. Sige po. Kayo na po mag-share ng screen.
Permission po to share the screen.
Okay. Wala ba? Di ka ba makapag-share, Sir John? Ayan.
So yun, good morning po. Ay, good afternoon naman. Basta yun, magandang araw po araw sa ating lahat. Kami po ang group 1. So we are composed of Sir Rafael Pantoja, Ma'am Tricia Baltasar, and Ma'am Maribel Soriano Astejada. And yours truly po. So we have 4 topics to present. So start with siguro tawag dito. Magpe-present na lang po yung may-ari ng kanya-kanya slide. Okay. So first, our first presentation po is on cropping systems, and I believe this is for Sir Rafael. Sir, kung pasabi na lang po if next.
Cropping system. Narinig ba ako, sir? Sir Eric, narinig ba ako?
Yes po, sir. Yes po.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Cropping system. Crop allopathy can be effective used to control weeds in the field, to alleviate allopathic toxicity, and reduce inhibitor influence among allopathic to improve the utilization rate of plant and to increase the annual. Next slide po. Rice as monocropping. Rice allochemicals are momelicatones and phenolic compounds that can suppress the weed, and the residue of rice can be applied as much as mulch in rice and other crops for achieving non-herbicidal weed control. Then crop rotation po. Crop rotation means changing the type of crop grown in the field each season or year. Example, in planting maize 1 year and next year is beans. It improves the soil structure and fertility, and because it helps control weed, pests, and diseases by growing secondary crop, which enhance soil health by nitrogen fixation. Then sequential cropping. Sequential cropping involves growing 2 crops in the same field, one after the other in the same year. Planting maize in the long rain, then the beans during the short rain. When crop residue incorporated into the soil fertility increase, it will help control weeds, pests, and diseases. Then intercropping refers to the growing of more than one crop on the same piece of land at the same time, and intercrop is planted between the main crop. Allochemical release into the environmental through root exudation, Biolization from above the ground, the parts of leaching from rainfall and decay of plant debris reduce weeds, population density, and biomass production of weeds. Then relay cropping po. The planting of another crop while the original crop is still standing. Relay cropping of chemicals to improve the utilization of land and increase the annual output of the soil, and another serve as cover crops. Next na po.
Okay, akin na po pala ito. Okay, so yung pong topic na napunta sa akin ay yung mulching with control, yung pong application ng allelopathy on mulch and weed control. So next slide. So rice as mulch. So madalas naman po nating nakikita yung ipa ng palay na ginagamit po natin or yung rice husk na ginagamit po natin pag mulch, especially sa mga plantito at plantita natin. And even yung pong rice straw, ginagamit din pong madalas na rice mulch. And rice can inhibit weed control and germination by secreting momilactone B in the rhizosphere. And momilactones are the main allelochemicals in plants. Next slide. So, yung momilactones accumulate not only on rice husk but also on the rice shoots, roots, and root exudates and micromolar levels. Next po. And then ayan po yung mga weeds na kinokontrol ng momilactone B that can inhibit the growth and germination of this species. Merong Arabidopsis thaliana, Cannabis sativa, and Echinocloa cruzgalli. So these are some of the species na kinokontrol po niya. Next slide. So ito naman po yung mango, ginagamit siya as mulch sa mga crops po natin. And mango leaves, allelopathic active substance are ferulic, comaric, yung benzoic, vanillic, and other and so on. So ito po yung mga allelopathic compounds niya. And then residues on mango leaves can suppress the growth of other plant species. Next slide. So dito po ginamit siyang pang-mulch sa mga roses. So okay naman po yung naging effect niya. Na-suppress po nila yung na-suppress po ng mango yung development ng weeds, which is Cyperus rotundus and Conodon dactylon. Next slide. However po, ginamit naman po yung mango as mulch sa mga sa turmeric at saka sa ginger, at nagkaroon po siya ng negative effect na kung saan bumaba po yung yield ng turmeric at ng ginger. So yun lang po. Thank you po.
Akin na pala. Sa akin naman po ay on agrochemicals. So allelopathic application and agriculture for agrochemicals. So what are agrochemicals? So sila yung mga pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers na ginagamit natin sa management of the agricultural system. So marami po ang from past years, no, nade-develop and na-enhance sila ng mga agrochemicals na ginagamit natin sa agriculture. So what are the types of agrochemicals? Pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, acidifiers, and liming agents, soil conditioner, as well as growth hormones. So alam naman na po natin ano ang role ng mga ito sa production and ano ang kanilang effect. So mostly po dito ay ginagamit na inputs to increase crop production. So medyo nahirapan po tayo sa paghahanap ng allelopathic usage. So ito na lang po ang disadvantage nila is on they promote toxicities due to poor regulation. So marami sa ating agrochemicals ay highly dangerous po sa atin sa mga tao as well as sa animals in their concentrated forms. For example, ammonia in low concentration is generally harmless to humans, but high concentrations ng mga gaseous fertilizer ng ammonia can drift to long distance or prove fatal to humans. So fertilizers are often regulated by the government sa kanilang paggamit, sa storage. Ayun, yun yung effect niya medyo on the health side po. And the benefit of agrochemicals are not only limited on crop yield. Crop protection solutions, ito pong mga agrochemicals, enables farmers in fruit production to process and increase crop yield and output. Ang weeds, pests, and diseases have an impact of up to 40% of the future crop production worldwide. If current crop pesticides were eliminated, this will decrease. And then sa food production naman po, it will deteriorate without crop protection chemicals. Many fruits and vegetables will be missing and prices will also increase. So yun po yung benefit ng agrochemicals. Then aliphatic compounds naman po can be used as natural herbicides and other pesticides. They are less disruptive. So yun po yung ating idea and going direction na pupuntahan natin in agriculture. So many important crops na sabi nga po ng ating mga classmates such as rice, sugarcane, and mung beans are affected by their own toxic acidates and phytotoxins produced when their residues decompose in the soil. So what we are doing at what we want is the development of environmentally friendly agrochemicals and microbial pesticides. So these allelochemicals are important components of plant defense mechanisms. The technology that modifies allelochemicals for production of environmentally friendly pesticides and plant growth regulators allows the effective management of agricultural production and confers environmental problems in the soil due to fairly high degradability of allelochemicals. So yung mga bacteria po can achieve the same function ng exhibit PG, PR attributes, and activity against allelopathic which reduces the inhibitory effect of susceptible plants caused by weeds. Other organic herbicides or plant growth inhibitors that have manufactured as a type of herbicide is comprised of the components extracted from pine, hinoki or Japanese cedar, and bamboo vinegar, which provided a practical method of utilizing plant allelopathy in paddy fields. The allelopathic example of this is the use of AgRE as this is systemically evaluated as seed germination po on the study po ni Lee et al. 2021. So the growth of Brassica piquensis, Lactuca sativa or Rhiza sativa, Portulaca rosea, and others in pot experiment, it suggested that AgRE inhibit both dicotyledons and monocotyledons not only by seed germination but also by seed growth. Furthermore, yung field trial po nila showed that it also significantly inhibited the growth of weeds in chrysanthemum with no adverse effect on the growth of Moraphilum. At last, RNA sequence analysis and key detection analysis indicated that AgRE inhibited po yung germination and growth of weed via multi-target and multi-pass. So in summary, AgRE was confirmed po as a potential raw materials for the development of preventive herbicides against various weeds. So yun lang po.
Hello po. So good morning po sa lahat. So ang topic ko naman po is all about the microbial pesticide. So we have the next slide po. We have the allelopathy in microorganisms involves the release of a chemical substance. Yun nga pong allelochemicals or antibiotics. So nire-release po nitong ating mga microorganisms or nitong ating plant, itong mga allelochemicals in our environment na nag-a-act siya as inhibitor po no, to other organisms. Next slide po. So we have allelochemicals na nag-a-act po siya as environmentally friendly herbicides. We have fungicides, insecticides, and plant growth regulators, and can have great value in sustainable agriculture. So sinasabi din po, no, kino-consider din po na ang allelochemicals is a natural pesticides or biopesticides dahil ginagamit nga, mas less nga po yung kanyang toxicity as compared po dun sa ating mga chemical, mga synthetic chemical na ginagamit po sa ating mga halaman. And next slide po. So we have also these microbial pesticides are pest management agents based on living microorganisms or natural products, and does offer a better alternative to chemical pesticides. So marami pong advantage, no, sa paggamit natin ng microbial pesticides, and ilan po sa mga ito ay yung mas specific yung kanilang tina-target, and yung mga species or yung mga insects ay hindi po nila nilalahat, no? So mas target yung pinapatay po nitong mga microbial pesticides, and of course po ay mas less yung pollution na nagagawa nito sa ating environment. So naiiwasan yung contamination ng paggamit ng microbial pesticides sa ating water and soil resources, for example. So next slide po, please. So noon pa po, no, ginagamit na talaga natin itong mga microorganism as pesticides, as biopesticides sa ating mga crops, no. We have the Bacillus thuringiensis in 1972 as the first, no, bioinsecticide. We have also Agrobacterium radiobacter na as the first biobactericide. We have Colletotrichum as the first bioherbicide, and Streptomyces as the first biofungicide. So noon pa lang po talagang ginagamit na to sa ating halaman to control yung ating, or to minimize yung ating mga insect pests. Next slide po. So this table shows some microbial pesticides, their effects, their allelochemicals, and kung saan po natin nakuha itong mga report po or mga study po na to. So first, we have the Trichoderma hercynium. It's a beneficial fungi, no, producing this hercynic acid, alemactacin, tricholine, the viridian, and peptide balls. And nakita nila that these allelochemicals significantly decrease po yung disease index of Fusarium wilt. We have also Trichoderma strains, no? We have this alemactacin viridian, kung saan they reduce the rot development of the 6 fungal pathogens, no, na associated with the Dioscorea cayennensis. We have also this bacteria, Bacillus subtilis and Bacillus cereus, kung saan reported na nagsisecrete ng bacillomycin, surfactant, subtilin na ini-inhibit, no, yung growth ng ating mga plant pathogens. We have also Pseudomonas fluorescens they producing canasamine, pyocyanin, viscosinamide. So they are antibiotic, mediates the rhizome rot disease resistance, and promote plant growth in termeric plants, and also sinusuppress nila yung soil-borne fungal pathogen. So isa pa po yung Metarhizium anisoplase. So ito ay talagang common, no, na ginagamit na natin. It is a producing, no, destructin, cyclosporin, efapreptin, kung saan ina-attack nila yung ating mga plant hoppers, bugs, and other pests. So next slide po. So aside from the fungi and bacteria, meron po tayong baculoviruses. So they producing neurotoxins. Meron din po silang scuttle o cathepsin gene or portis gene kung saan they significantly infects the armyworm, leaf folder, and other insects. So pwede po natin silang gamitin sa insects ng, for example, sa rice, insect, for example, ng ating mga onions. So they are attacking insect and other arthropods. We have also this Bacillus thuringiensis. So ito po yung isa sa sikat, no, na ginagamit to modify po or to improve yung ating mga plants. So sikat po yan. We have BT corn, we have BT eggplant, BT tomato. So ang ginagawa po pala ng ating BT is kapag nagpo-produce po, no, ng crystal protein and cytolytic toxin itong ating bacteria na to. So once na ma-ingest, no, ng ating insect larvae itong crystal protein na to sa kanilang gut, so ma-activate, no, yung using yung digestive enzyme nila, ma-activate yung toxin, and then kapag na-activate siya, magkakaroon na po pala ng pore formation sa cell membrane nung ating larvae, and then mapaparalyze na po yung gut. And then once na maparalyze na siya, eventually ay mamamatay na po yung ating insect larvae. So may mga nabasa po ako na 2 to 3 days lamang po ay talagang namamatay po yung ating mga insects. So we have also the cholesterol 2 producing the diramnolipid. So ini-inhibit nila yung primary root length and fresh plant weight kung saan nagsiserve siya as herbicide. So 8 weed species yung kaya niyang ma-inhibit yung plant growth. We have also these nematode strains. So nagpo-produce sila ng mga volatile cues from insect and plants. So meron tong mutualistic relationship with the bacteria, no? So nagkakaroon sila ng symbiotic relationship doon sa ating bacteria, kung saan yung ating bacteria is nagpo-produce, no, ng nutrients para sa ating nematode, and yung nematode naman, or without the nematode po, ay of course hindi ganong mabubuhay yung ating bacteria. So meron silang symbiotic relationship kung saan ina-attack, no, nila yung for example, we have these black vine weevil larvae and pupae on nursery plants and landscape ornamentals, and they are deadly fatal for a number of agricultural insect pests. We have also these Streptomyces. So they are producing allelochemicals of phytotoxins, geldanomycin, nigericin. So itong mga to is to control po yung ating mga weeds. So next slide please po. Next slide po. Ayan. We have also this bacteria na nagsaserve siya as insecticide and as fungicide. So we have this organism, yung BT, kung saan ang pinaka-target species nila is yung caterpillar. We have this alfalfa weevil na makikita po natin dito sa mga crops po natin. So next slide po. Next slide. Ayan. Okay. So, gumagamit din po tayo dito ng oomycete. So, we have the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. And then we have also these strains of nematodes, no? So, ito po yung ginagamit nila to control pa po yung ating mga pests sa ating crops. And mula po dito, no, yung understanding natin sa paggamit ng mga allelochemicals ay magagamit natin, no, to increase po yung productivity, ma-sustain po natin yung or magamit natin sa ating crop production yung ating allelochemicals. Thank you lang. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you po sa Group 1. So thank you Sir John Eric, Ma'am Bell, Sir Rafael, and Ma'am Tricia. So we 4 applications yung napag-usapan, yung na-report. So first is on the cropping system. Second is doon sa agrochemicals. So there are some plants and some microorganisms yung kinukuhanan ng allelochemicals. They generate this allelochemicals in vitro. Then na yung kay Ma'am Bell, ang topic is on microbial pesticides. So these are we use the allelochemicals released by the microorganisms. And last naman ay yung isa, yung kay Ma'am Tricia doon sa mulching. So ang represent is yung sa rice and mango. Okay, so thank you po sa group 1. So this time, pakinggan naman po natin. Okay, palakpakan din natin po yung lahat. Ma'am Bell, Ma'am Tricia, and Sir John Eric. Napakinggan naman po natin si Sir Joel, Solo Flight Group. Masasabi ko pa bang Group 2? Okay, so Sir Joel.
Okay po, good afternoon po Sir Gerald and classmates. Let me just share my screen. Ay, nawala. Bali. Share. Nakikita na po ba yung slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you po. Oh. Okay, slideshow. Okay. Again, good afternoon na po pala. No? Of course, let me acknowledge my group mates here. Si Ma'am Teresita and Ma'am Virgie. Collectively help in putting up these slides. So sa ngayon, mapagpasensya na po at solo flight nga po at nagkaroon po ng technical issues I think with the interconnectivity. So allelopathy applications in agriculture. Next. So breeding the allelopathic cultivars. So we all know that weeds are very much a problem in most cropping systems. No? It results to yield losses because of the basic competition. No? Yung mga pangangailangan ng ating crops ay usually they are really problems in competition for these resources. So ito naman po yung mga cereal crops well, according to research. Rice, sorghum, wheat, rye, maize, barley. It says that they manifest strong allelopathic activities. No? So which means to say, in terms of breeding work, probably, and in the proper management, cultural management practices, I think these are of primary consideration. Okay? So ano ba yung mga pwedeng mga traits na pwede nating ma-develop, no? So that the allelopathic tendencies would be more towards the positive rather than the negative side. So do not ask me about the chemical structure dahil hindi ko po mapapaliwanag sa inyo yan. Tagal na po ko last kumuha ng biochemistry at saka organic. So, kumakita eh. Okay, wheat progenitors. Or screen for different seedling allelopathy on the growth of wild oat and lettuce. So sabi nila, yung wheat plants daw natin ay nagre-release ng maraming allelochemicals in the environment. So ito po yung mga chemicals, no? And it says also that these allelochemicals from bread wheat can inhibit root growth and seed germination of wild oat. So mukhang may negative relationship sila, no? Okay, so ito po yung simple illustration on how these dynamics work. No? If you see here, there are certain stresses or shock that may be introduced or may be encountered by a certain crop. Like ito, yung radiation, no? Ultraviolet, yung solar radiation, even injury, physical injury, or pathogenic attacks. No? It induces the release of allelochemicals. So ito po. and resulting to the release of allelochemicals through the following mechanisms. So it could be through wind, through it can coat plant residues, soil moisture can spread the chemicals, and the roots of neighboring plants, no, yung magkakatabi, no, can absorb the allelochemicals. So that results to transportation and exposure. So anong effect? The net effect is at times inhibition of seed germination, inhibition of shoot root growth, inhibition of nutrient uptake, may attack a naturally occurring symbiotic relationship. It can cause microorganism-based transformation, alter susceptibility to pathological infection. So it can be positive, it can be negative. So that is a primary consideration when we are doing management of crops in a particular system. Okay, so yan po yung illustration. So nandito po, breeding rice cultivars with strong allelopathic potentials can effectively result to a complementary with suppression. So kumbaga, without having to apply too much of pesticide, pwede rin pala nating i-take advantage or i-capitalize yung allelopathic potentials or tendencies to naturally control certain pests, like weeds. Kaya nga sabi dito, non-herbicidal weed control, which I think in the current times, we are to really focus on because of the rising cost of inputs. So malaking potential po ito, lalo po sa ating mga farmers, na naghihirap, hindi na makabili ng mga inputs. In terms of reduced nitrate leaching, nitrous oxide pollution, so nitrogen leaching losses are estimated in a range of 20 to 100 kilograms per hectare per year, depending on the season and rainfall, as well as soil texture. So yung nitrification process is transforming ammoniacal N into nitric nitrogen through two phases. So ayan po, may dalawang phases na sinasabi, and carried out by bacteria. Yung Nitrosomonas, Nitrosococcus, Nitrospira. And another one is oxidation to nitrate operated by the Nitrobacter genus. Okay. So ang sabi dito, ang isang application, allelochemicals can act as biological nitrification inhibition substances. So ini-inhibit niya yung process by inhibiting the enzyme activities of the ammonium oxidizing bacteria. So ito po, ribwort, sabi dito, ribwort plantain is observed to release allelochemicals such as ito, ocubin, catapol, and verbascoside that reduces soil nitrogen mineralization o incorporation of its leaf material into the soil. Hopefully lang po itong ganitong information ay talagang nati-disseminate kasi maganda po itong talagang malaman ng ating mga farmers, no? These are practical solutions in fact. So ito po yon yung structure ng ocubin, catapol, and verbascoside. So in addition to increase of nutrient solubilization, availability, and use efficiency. So yan yung isang application, di ba? We want to have more nutrient availability in the soil. No? But generally, allelochemicals also tends to decrease or inhibit mineral uptake by plants. So there are several experiments, wherein some instances where nutrient absorption in plants grown in association with other plants due to addition of specific allelochemicals in the nutrient solution. So, ibig sabihin, talagang it will all boil down to how do we have a very good understanding of allelopathic relationships so that ang pinaka-ultimate application niya is what will be the best, I think, combination of crops that would have to be done in a farming systems approach. So, hindi ibig sabihin, tanim lang tayo ng tanim because it can grow there. But these are physiological information or knowledge that I think should be basic and that researchers should be able to translate into farmer-friendly information so that pag sila'y nagtatanim at hindi naman ito alam ng farmers palagi, na mayroon parang ganitong reaksyon na maaring may allelochemical pala yung isang halaman, yung kapitbahay niya, hindi na maka-absorb ng nutrient. Diba? In other instances, yung naman palang tinatanim niya, like yung sa rice, pag na-capitalize natin yung allelopathic niya, yung trait na yun, yung chemical na nagre-release, pwede na pala siyang di mag-apply ng herbicide. So very practical solutions, no? That would entail a lesser cost for the farmers to manage. So I think this is the last slide po. References na lang po yan. So with that po, I end the presentation. I do hope I really did justice to the very technical nature of the topic. Maraming salamat po muli for your kind attention.
Okay. Thank you po, Sir Joel. So very technical presentation regarding kung paano natin magagamit yung pong ating mga yung allelopathy, paano siya na-apply sa ating in various purposes, in various cases. So ayun po. So nagamit natin siya. I mean, there a very specific scenarios were provided by Sir Joel. This is a consolidated report by Group 2 together with Ma'am Tess and Ma'am Virgie. So thank you po, Sir Joel, for representing and presenting your group today. So ayun po. Any questions? Meron po ba tayong questions or meron pa po tayong gustong i-share? Oh, I believe gutom na po tayong lahat. Okay. Again po, this is our last topic. So I'll be giving po for next week, I'll be giving you po an activity. It will run for 2 weeks, I believe. So you will do this at home. So sa inyo po mismo, I'm just finishing the details and the instructions para mas maging clear po siya sa ating lahat. Now, I'm not sure kung hanggang anong oras, hanggang anong date po yung ating semester, because for the undergraduate, yung pong semester ay matatapos pa lang ng December 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not just sure with the graduate student. So I'll keep you po posted. I'll just check the academic calendar. Pero usually po sabay po kasi itong calendar ng graduate school at saka po nung undergraduate. I'll also inform later, but I'm already proposing that the exam hopefully will be face-to-face so that magkita-kita din po tayong lahat dito sa ng personal. So ayun lang po ay babiyahe sina Sir Joel at saka si Ma'am Bel just kung sakali. So that's why I'm telling you right now po para at least ma-schedule at ma-block off natin yung schedule po na yun. But more likely we will follow po yung schedule ng undergraduate, most probably baka po magkita-kita po tayo ng 17. So that will be the schedule of the final exam. So more likely po, yun po yun. I'll just check the calendar. It's either December 10 or December 17. But I believe baka December 17 po yan. Yes, Sir Joel.
Sir, I support the December 17 po.
Opo. So
we were about to, kasi on the sides we were discussing ng mga classmates, ano kaya yung prospective day. Pero since you mentioned most likely 17, sir, sana po 17 na.
yeah, sana po 17 din.
Kasi yung mga previous Saturday, may mga nakikita na po medyo conflict. Kaya okay po yung December 17.
Yes. At saka feeling ko naman, sir, yung December 24, dahil hindi siya holiday eh. Diba, sir? Hindi siya...
Self-proclaimed, sir. Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed holiday itong December 24. So more likely po December 17. So
Sir, yung December 17, if ever, the exam would be same time kung anong oras po tayo nag-start.
Yes, sir. Or I'll just check, sir, kung wala po kayong activity, let's say Meron po ba kayong klase before my subject po?
Before this, meron po sir kay Prof. Norman.
Opo.
Pero
So,
hindi po namin alam kung anong
pero more likely, sir, sana, ito pong time natin. How about po, sir, yung time after my subject po?
supposedly meron po kay Doc Ems, kaya lang parang wala na yata. Wala na po yata nakaschedule.
Sige po. Kasi kung naisip ko, yung po sanang straight na tayo na half afternoon, kung sakali po. Yun. Or early morning, para hindi siya abutan ng lunch. I mean, mahirap mag-exam ng lunch time.
Siguro po pwede na. But it depends po yung sa mga classmates ko rin po dito.
Yeah,
Pero I think the afternoon is free na yata yun.
Opo. Or tingnan din po natin kasi baka si Ma'am Bell, baka po magbiyahe din siya that
Kasi
day.
may malayo rin po
Mm-mm.
So that yung morning travel time na lang.
Mm-mm.
Baka after lunch is a better option.
Opo. So ayun. Siguro when I'll just check po muna yung calendar kasi hindi rin po ako sure doon sa mismong academic calendar kung pareho talaga yung sa grad school or earlier siya ng 1 week. Tapos po I'll inform you probably through chat po. Since medyo mahaba-haba pa naman po we still have 1 month actually doon dito po sa ating sa semester. Almost a month. So ayun po. So
Sir,
okay.
question lang po.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, can we submit now in the genome?
Yes, ay taka lang sir. I-check ko lang po yung ano. Yes sir. Pwede na po siya sir mag-log in. So ano lang po. Yung baka sir yung date kasi.
Today po itong sir.
Yung isa po yung isang activity po ay today. So iyan na lang natin siya. Change ko lang po yung date of submission. Settings, submission. Ayun po. Yes sir, na-change ko na po yung setting. So yung may submit na po yung pong ano po natin. Pwede niyo pong ma-upload yung pong file.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, dun po sa group, individual po namin i-submit.
Kahit isa lang po. Yung mag-submit po.
Ay, isa na lang.
Opo.
Sige po, ipasubmit na lang po namin kay Sir Janery.
Yes
Thank you
po. Okay po. So, ayun po. So, I think that concludes our day-to-day, our discussion for today. So, for documentation purposes po, may I request po everyone to turn on their cameras. Ayun po. Sir Joel po, kung kaya sir. Baka na ano po si Sir Joel. So in count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. So isa pa po. In count of 3. 1, 2, 3. So ayun po. So thank you po for your participation in our class today. So it's almost 1 p.m. So please have your lunch. You may have your lunch na po. So good day everyone. Good day po.
Good day po.
Good day po.
Good day
Thank you
po.
po.
Thank you po.